So, good afternoon. Hello?
Go ahead. I just started recording.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I think everyone knows who I am. I'm Mike Leach with the Arkansas Association of Two-Year Colleges. And we are going to have a webinar today on describing the ACE program, which stands for Academy for College Excellence. And then also talk about the opportunity for ACE to work in Arkansas with a few of our colleges, which is why I invited you all to be on this webinar. So we have Diego Navarro, who's the founder of ACE and who will be leading the webinar. He's on the call, and I'll let him do a longer introduction of himself in a minute. And then we have Nicole Davis, who's been speaking with you all about the technology issues. She is also with ACE and will be participating in the webinar. We have 4 colleges represented on the call, and just briefly, I reached out to you for one of 2 reasons. It was either because you all were part of the faculty inquiry project that we did last year, and you had faculty who were interested in helping students with the affective or behavioral issues that students often have when they come to our colleges. So I thought there was a sort of fundamental interest from your colleges in this type of project. Or the other reason that I might have invited y'all was because you deal with a lot of high poverty students, generational poverty students, and particularly in an urban setting. So Pulaski Tech is one of the schools that sort of fits that profile. So you were sort of handpicked. We're going to end up working with 2, 3, or 4 at most colleges. And we wanted to give you all the opportunity first to participate in this if you're interested, and if you're not, that's fine. We'll move on and open up the opportunities, some of the colleges that we have in the state. So the 4 schools that are on the call, and when I call your name or your school name, just go ahead and introduce yourself real quick, and we can get introductions done that way. So Pulaski Tech, who's on the call from Pulaski Tech?
Mike DeLong.
And Derek Moore.
And then ASU Newport?
Marty Scholl.
Robert Silvers.
Alan Lynn.
Ike Wheeler.
Great. How about Ozarka?
Dennis Ritzel.
And Holly Ayers.
And then from Phillips Community College?
Stephen Murray.
Okay. Anybody else I missed? So I'm gonna hand it over to Diego and Nicole to explain ACE and talk about the Arkansas project. Let me just say a few more background words. This project was brought to us in large part by the Kresge Foundation. The Kresge folks are interested in giving ACE a grant, and ACE is in the process of putting that grant together. And the Kresge folks, because we've received funding from them and because they know that we've done quite a bit of deep faculty work through the Faculty Inquiry Project and through PACE, thought we might be a good fit to work with the ACE folks. And so they connected us. They also connected ACE with Michigan, and the Michigan folks may be part of this. I'll let Diego speak a little bit more to that. But the bottom line is we were fortunate enough to have this brought to us by Kresge. And I will say that, and some of you may be familiar with ACE, but I've been following them for quite a while because there's been a lot of discussion around PACE and through faculty inquiry and in other conversations I've been a part of about the need to deal with students' behavioral challenges that they come to college with, the affective domain, as Diego describes it. And with all the work that we've done, I don't think at least I'm not familiar with anything that we've been up to through the center anyway, that really deals with that domain and those issues. And so this is an exciting project from that perspective, and I think it fits in well with all of the other things that we've been doing around developmental education reform and all the other student success projects that we've been working on. I mean, this is very complementary to anything that we've been up to, and I would say pretty much anything y'all have been doing on your campuses as well. So with that background, Diego, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you get started.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate this opportunity. I want to let you all know that on our side, we were having one group that was having problems getting this webinar to run on their computer, and it happens to be my computer. So I'm going to be leaving this webinar kind of blind. I have the slide deck, and I'm quite familiar with it. So if you find things coordinated a little bit off, then that should be okay. I understand that. I met Mike almost 2 years ago, or a year ago, over at the Achieving the Dream conference. We were presenting there in a panel from 3 other colleges that we're working with, and Mike happened to be there, and we got to touch base. And so I'm really excited about all that Mike has been telling me about the work that you all are doing, and really appreciate this opportunity to talk with you all. And what I'm going to be doing is going over sort of an introduction to ACE, and then go into some academic evidence. I find that when you get into the evidence, that starts to help people understand why this is an interesting approach. And then we'll go into the context and the problem and the role of the affective. I will define what affective means, and so that you'll understand what that is. And then evidence around the affective, because there's a correlation between the affective shifts in the students and then their academic performance. There's several papers I've written with a woman named Rosa Serra, which I know several of you are quite familiar with Rose. We've co-published together. She's been studying my program since about 2008. And the way that she coins it is she says the affective is the precursors to the academic performance of students. And so she sat in our classroom. She's done ethnographies of my students and the work that we've been doing. We've been collaborating for years now. And so I know many of you are familiar with Rose, and she's going to be a part of this project as well. She was doing faculty inquiry work when she was at Kresge Foundation for Advancement of Teaching, and that project, the SPEC project, ended in 2008. And she brought the faculty that were in her SPEC projects to my faculty training program in the summer of 2008. And she actually went through our faculty training work as well. She's done it twice now. She's been documenting it the second time around. So I very much appreciate Rose's perspective and all the knowledge she has, and she's a very friendly person, as you all know. So the ACE program itself has been around since 2002, when we first got funded to look at issues around rural students that were living in Watsonville, which is 80% Latino community. And since then, we've had over 3,700 students going through the program. We've at about 15 colleges now, and students in rural environments, urban environments, suburban environments, different ethnicities, and it works for all these different groups. It's a very effective program at reaching at a deeper place our students. So what ACE is a model for engaging students and building peer support to complete their gateway math and English courses through curriculum in the classroom. And it's more than just completing their gateway math and English courses, which I'll show you in a couple slides from now. Is that our model has been adapted to many different programs and program types. So our program is being used in CTE, that's career technical education programs. It's being used for transfer level programs that are students that are prepared for college. But the far majority of the students that we've been working with for over 12 years now are underprepared students that are underprepared for college. And so what we've done is there's 3 different things that happen with students as they come into a college. The first is that how do we get students to believe they can do it? You know, how do you light the fire for learning within the student? That's kind of the first thing, and many programs focus on that, and they look at those issues and they help the students do it. What's different about ACE is that we do it within the classroom environment, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So the first thing is getting students to believe they can do it, especially students that didn't do well in school before or have complexities in their lives that keep them from seeing themselves as college material, that they belong here and they can do well here. The second thing is how do you help students on a regular basis monitor their progress and motivate them and deal with behaviors and help students solve life problems. That's the second area, and we tie that to an academic program. That's the third area. So what are the academics that you do? So that's kind of a three-step model that we have. And what we do is for that first one is we do an intensive course that's about 8 days long that gets students to believe they can do it. And our success rate with that is about 95 to 98%. And it's been studied by the University of California, Santa Cruz. They've looked at our professional training. They find that any faculty or faculty that want to teach this can learn how to teach it. So we've developed how to do that. We have the curriculum very well documented to allow for that. But it's primarily a 3-credit course. In some colleges it's transfer level credit because the curriculum we're using is used in a number of major organizations to train their top level executives. It's a very effective curriculum on communications and working styles. How do you become a professional, be an effective professional in life? And so that course takes care of that first bubble. The next course is called, we create a student cohort out of that foundation course that becomes a peer bonded community that supports each other. And in the next course, the ACE Team Self-Management course, we support the students to support each other. So we create a 7x24 support network that's a peer support network where they support each other. And then we tie that to academics, to an academic program, what we call academic program variations. So you have these 2 courses tied to an academic program, and that's pretty much what the ACE model does. And so there are different flavors of that model. The first flavor is what we call the affective orientation. This is for college-prepared students. So if a student is college-prepared, they usually have the behaviors and they have the attitudes and the mindsets to be effective in college. And so we find that just providing them with a foundation course is all they need to then launch and be effective in their college career. And in particular programs like CTE programs, career technical education programs, several colleges that have nursing programs or radiologic technology programs, or they have programs in dental hygiene. These programs require a number of science prerequisites before you can join those programs and apply. So those programs have students that are very well prepared, that have been to college for a number of years. Well, they usually put our foundation course before their program, so students, as they go on the program, they know how to work in teams, they know how to be professional, and they create a very bonded and intimate group of students that work well together. And it changes their retention rates. It lowers the kind of issues they have in terms of sometimes there's difficulty in these programs in terms of standards, and students aren't working to a certain standard. And they can have those tough discussions with students because there's a deeper bond with them. And we find that it leads to a more amicable relationship with the faculty and the students. So that's one variation. The second variation is our affective summer bridge. And we have a college that's serving 250 to 300 students per summer going through this. The first time they brought it up, I think they had about 250 students. And so we were able to help them just launch it. But what that does is it takes somebody that's new to college, and in the summer over, I think it's a 6-week period, gets them prepared for academics and for college. It's rich with a social justice experiential course tied to the foundation course and the team self-management course. Now the team self-management course is important for students that aren't prepared for college because it provides these students with the capacity to look at their behaviors and look at the issues that are going on that keep them from being successful in college. Because what we find is that a lot of underprepared students developed not so good behaviors when they were in high school that keep them from turning in their assignments or showing up to class or being there on time. And so this team self-management class is really good at getting students to look at themselves and what their motivation is and aligning their behaviors with what they're trying to do. And it's all within curriculum. It's embedded in curriculum that you do in the classroom. It's experiential and very effective. The third type of model that we've seen is our affective support for career technical education programs. So these are CTE programs that are designed for underprepared students. And so at my college, it's a medical assisting program. We've had at other colleges agricultural machinery. It's out of our program in Salinas. Energy and construction management programs are using it. Green technology is another one. So these are programs for students that aren't prepared for college. unlike the first one, the one that we talked about, the affective orientation. These are students that aren't prepared for college in a career technical program, and that's used with both the foundation course and the ACE Team Self-Management course. And then the affective booster for learning communities is it provides a 24/7 peer support environment for learning communities that want to learn how to build this kind of community bonding and community support. And we work in a number of colleges with that. And then finally is our accelerated academic learning model, which I'll talk about in a little bit and show you the evidence behind this model, where we accelerate the students in math and in English at the same time, simultaneously, so that they don't have to spend semester after semester taking developmental ed courses. They just have to do one semester and be prepared for college. And I'll talk about that in a moment. Now, if anyone has a question, I think maybe the best way to do it is there's a chat box on your screen that you can type in a question, and I'll try to address those as we go forward. So I wanted to tell you a little bit about a student that I had named Anna. And Anna was a student here at Cabrillo College, and I worked with her when I first met her at the adult school. And she came to this country when she was 12 years old and crossed the border with her mother and her sister. And they moved to Watsonville, and she did her 8th grade class there. And she was the youngest child in her family. And when she graduated from 8th grade, her family was all really excited because no one in their family had ever graduated from 8th grade. And then, within about 3 months, she found that she was pregnant. And she had to leave school to be able to work and pay for having children. And when I met her when she was 26, she had 3 children, and she was at the adult school trying to learn computers so that she could stop being in this she had 2 jobs that she was working, and she was burned out, and she wanted to learn computer skills in order to get out of that kind of mode that she was in, and she was pretty burnt out. And she was afraid to come to Cabrillo because she'd never gone to high school. And so she came into our program, and she did very well, did straight A's in our program, and then left and went right into the college and did all of her prereqs, was an honor student, and then went into the nursing program. And so this is a student that never went to high school, because we find adults, with the learning that they do in their lives, do really well in school, and you take that ability for them to survive and for them to persist, in situations that are pretty difficult, and we apply that strength that they have for survival into the academic environment. And that's kind of what we're doing through the affective. So that's the introduction to ACE. Let me give you some idea about our academic evidence. And before I do that, let me just say a little bit about myself. And this is just to give you a sense of what my background is. My grandparents came to this country in about 1918, 1920, and they only spoke Spanish throughout my life. And my parents were ESL students that were born in this country. And my mom never graduated from high school. And I was raised in Southern California. And in 7th grade, I went into junior high school, and I was tracked into wood shop, metal shop, and electric shop, primarily because of my last name, and I'm dark-haired. And so I was tracked into those classes, and then in 9th grade, my mom died. This is back in the early 70s. There was no pain control. There was no hospice. And she died of bone cancer, which is a very painful death. And waking up in the middle of the night, hearing her suffer and not being able to do anything really affected me deeply. And I found that when I went to school the next day, school became irrelevant to me because of what I was facing at home and the trauma that was going on watching my mom suffer the way that she was suffering. And so I found that in high school I didn't perform. I was really acting out because of what happened with my mother, and the only way I could deal with it was the way that I was dealing with it. And I grew up in a very tough neighborhood in a place where there were the Crips and the Blood gangs. There was very violent neighborhoods. And so I found myself at the end of high school graduating, but I couldn't read and write at college level. And I found that going to Pasadena City College, which is a community college, I was able to develop the skills that I needed to be effective in college and then later on in life. And so I have an affinity for our students because many of them come from poverty, and I understand what that was like, and I'm sure many of us do. not even if we didn't experience it, we see it in our students, and come from very tough situations that sometimes make school irrelevant. It's not that they're not smart, because smart isn't what is affecting these students. It's something different than that. But they come from tough situations that sometimes made education irrelevant to their daily lives. So that's what we're trying to address with our students through the curriculum and the pedagogy of our program. So let me go on and share with you a little bit about the academic evidence of our program. This study that I'll be sharing with you is a third study that was done. The first one was an NSF, National Science Foundation funded study in the early 2000s of our program. And then the Columbia University Community College Research Center studied our program. And that led to the Gates Foundation funding that came in 2009. And then they funded a multi-college longitudinal study of our program similar to the CCRC study that they did at our college. And they found very similar evidence. So let me share with you what the demographics are. So this study is of 1,020 students, of which 70% or more are African American and Latino students, which is the students that are in the ACE program. If you look at their English level, almost 49% is placed 2 levels or more below transfer level English, and placed 1 level below, 42% about 1 level below college level English. So you just have over 90% that are underprepared for English, and almost 89% that place 2 or more levels below transfer level math at one of the colleges that we were doing the math English integrated acceleration model. And if you look at the students that had completed a GED, it was about almost 15%, and no high school diploma was 11%, because in California, you don't have to have a high school diploma to go to community college. You can't get financial aid, but you can still go. And we had about over 25% of the students were of those from that background. The mean age is about 24.9. We have usually between 18 and about 45-year-olds in the program at the different colleges and campuses. So these are the results that came of it. That 1 semester after attending ACE, so ACE is a 1-semester program, and they come out of that program and they go into regular courses. And students that were from the ACE program had a 2.3 times more likely to pass transfer level English 1 semester after the ACE program, and had a 1.7 times more likely to pass transfer level English 2 semesters after the ACE program, compared to a comparison group that was done through propensity score matching, for those of you that understand research methodologies, which is a very rigorous way of studying students. And so it was a comparison group of 199,000 students. This is 4 colleges, 1,000 student study. And the statistical significance of the shift is about a 0.001 level of significance of this. So this is the English, and you'll notice there's velocity. Like students that come out of the program and do much better, and then the other students start to catch up the second semester, but there's still statistically significant difference between the 2 groups. If you look at math, it's a similar story, but it's a much bigger effect. So it's a 4.3 times more likely to pass transfer level math 1 semester after ACE, and then 2 semesters after ACE is about 3.3 times more likely. Now, our approach to math acceleration and English acceleration is pretty much an agnostic approach, is that colleges have adopted ALP. We're fine. We work with colleges that do ALP. Other colleges do the California acceleration, English acceleration model that Katie Hearn does. We're fine with that. We have a model that we've been doing as well that's based off of what Katie's been doing for years. And Tom, one of her colleagues at her college, has been doing. So we have a model that we've been doing as well, but we're pretty agnostic to which one you use. In math, we have the same thing. We have colleges that use StatWay and QuantWay. From Kresge Foundation, we have Myra Snell's work, the California Acceleration Project model. The curriculum that we have is the one that's being used in the California Acceleration Project. Myra Snell's colleague at Los Medanos, Rust, is a professor there in mathematics, and he's also an ACE master mentor. And he developed that curriculum that they use in statistics that came out of our program. So it's really designed for our social justice primary research methodology. And so if we look at the work that TU has been doing over at Los Medanos, and you look at transfer level math and English completion, so you have simultaneously accelerating in both at the same time because of the deep support we provide through the affective model, you have a 7.8 times more likely to pass transfer level math and English one semester after our program, and 4 times more likely 2 semesters after. So in addition to these math and English acceleration, we have the CTE models, Career Technical Education, and the Summer Bridge. But the data I'm sharing with you right now is of those acceleration approaches. So I'm going to briefly just go into the context and problem we're addressing here and the role of the affective. I'll then lay out affective evidence and then talk about the opportunity of adoption with all of you in Arkansas, whom we would love to work with, and we're putting together this proposal for Kresge to do. So in terms of the context and problem, the way that we tend to look at this is that there's degrees of commitment that our students have, from well-grounded, confident, and prepared students that are committed to going to college. Their family's been talking about it for a long time. They're committed, they're prepared, and they may not have the means to go to a 4-year at that point, or they want to be close to home, or whatever the reasons are. They're committed and they're going for it. And then you have students that are more in the red area on the right. They're tentatively committed to college, and there are tensions in their family. There may be anxiety in their home because they don't have the money to go to school, or their family's always been struggling financially, or there may be alcoholism. There may be all kinds of complex things going on in their homes, and they may not have anyone in their family or role models that went to college before. So they're more tentatively committed to college than the other students. And so entering students today, we find many of them are more to the right side, more tentatively committed to college. And so what we do is we help these students because they come from a huge range of backgrounds in terms of age and ethnicity. Our community colleges, at least in California, because the way they grew is that in the 50s and the 60s is where most of the colleges really started to develop across the United States in terms of community colleges. And the student back then is very different than the students today on a number of dimensions. And these dimensions include the personal struggles and the fragmented families that they're in, or the needs of their family to economically work, or they have low-paying jobs, or there's vestiges of vigilance and survival in very tough situations. Transportation challenges and child care appointments, unmet health challenges and violence and drugs in neighborhoods or communities. It's just that our communities have changed around us, and it's affected our students that are coming in, because either they're dealing with that personally, or they have their family members that are, or they're just dealing with it in their lives and their neighborhoods. So what we're trying to do is address these issues, and the way that we address them is by going after the root problem. And the root problems is that many of our students, this is a study that was done actually by our friends at Community College in Baltimore County, the ALP colleagues. But what they found was that they were looking at students that were leaving the school, and they were saying, what are the issues that you're faced with? And the first one they found was that life problems become overwhelming. And we know that dealing with life problems, a lot of times we need to do more case management with students and help and support them with resources from the college to support that. And the second reason, and this is something we've been finding too in addition to that, is that they find life more attractive outside of college than in college. They have homework now, and I don't want to do homework because I have my friends on the phone or on Facebook, or there's shows I want to watch. And so you have this competition with their life. And so they're not as committed because they're finding things more attractive in their personal life than in school. So how do you turn that around so that school becomes exciting and the thing they get attracted to in terms of their future? And the third item is giving up because of affective issues, mostly centered around fear, anxiety, and a suspicion that they're not college material. So they're getting these messages, or they're interpreting messages as, I'm not supposed to be here. And therefore they lose their motivation and lose their reason to be in college. Now, so what do we mean by affective or affective issues? And so the affective domain is really feelings and emotions and about hope. It's about mindsets and beliefs and attitudes. It's about your self-image. We find college identity, which is a psychological construct, is a very important piece to commitment to college and for perseverance. There's self-discipline and delayed gratification, and behaviors like and habits of mind, and mindfulness, and social skills, and learning strategies. And all of these things are what are considered the affective domain or the non-cognitive. And this is a new area. I mean, we've been doing this work for about 12 years, and so it has been done for very long, in many colleges. And so we're still trying to figure out what does this area mean and how do you label it. So it's kind of squishy at this point, but it covers these areas. And I'll go a little bit later and share with you a study that came out of the University of Chicago around this. And so our approach to this affective is really 3 levels or 3 tiers. The first one is awareness. How do you help the student come awake, having purpose, and finding themselves so that college is part of the identity they start to look towards and become, and to start to get the feeling and the understanding of what that means, even though they may not have come from a family that went to college before. How do you help them become aware and do that? That's part of what we focus on. Also, we focus on collaboration, leadership skills, and peer support so that students learn how to work together and learn those collaborative leadership skills, which are very needed in our society today, especially in a lot of companies. They're looking for students that know how to work together and work in teams effectively, and we focus on that. And the third is, how do you become effective? How do you develop the self-discipline and the self-efficacy and the ability to struggle that's going to allow you to put the time that you need to do the academics that then allows you to be effective in school. So, so that's our approach, is those 3 tiers and those 3 levels with academics, because we think they have to be integrated. You don't do one and then the other, you do them together, because the academics you need to learn to struggle through and struggle with as you're learning. And so what we're finding is that the affective approach to increase retention and completion, what we're primarily doing is we're taking students that know how to survive and persist in tough environments, and help them translate those strengths and qualities into attitudes and behaviors that allow them to be successful in college. We build the skills and the habits that promote peer bonding and a network of 24/7 support within a classroom curriculum, within the classroom environment. The teachers are facilitating this learning together through the foundation course and the team self-management course. They recognize and thrive within a college's culture, so they start to be able to interpret what they're seeing and not feel threatened, or not that I don't belong here. They start to see that, oh, that's part of the culture, and they learn how to adapt and work effectively in that culture, as well as bring their uniqueness. And they learn to become effective students, not just more effective, become effective people, not just the more effective students. What research has shown is that this affective work is very important. There are studies that show that in University of Chicago study, which I'll show you in a moment, there's work from Carol Dweck at Stanford University, or Angela Duckworth at University of Pennsylvania, that students succeed when they have certain affective behaviors when they begin their educational journey. There's a really good book called How Children Succeed by Paul Tuff, and in the first chapter he really lays out what this is about. It's a very effective written piece that I've noticed. The second area that research indicates is that how students experience the first 3 weeks of college enrollment significantly impacts their achievement. And Kay McClenny at University of Texas, in the Community College Survey of Student Engagement, it's reinforced this over and over again, that these first 2 to 3 weeks of college are probably the most important week that students have in college. In the ACE model, we really focus a 58-hour course that gets the students to really understand where they are in college, how they can be effective, and to have them turn around their lives in a way that they say, I'm a college student, I belong here, I can do it, and make that commitment. The third area is accomplishing 20 units in the student's initial year of college can advance their likeliness of completing their education. And the research comes out of Offenstein and Schulock's work out of the Education Trust, where you can look at NPR Associates or Community College Research Center at Columbia. There's a number of studies that have proven this to be the case. So that sort of lays out the argument of what the affective is and what we're doing. And now what I'll do is I'll just lay out affective evidence, but I've been speaking a lot, and I'm just wondering, Mike, would you like me to go through these last 2 or open it up for some questions at this point and then go back into it? What do you think is the best way?
I mean, can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes.
Diego, I don't remember how many slides are left in the content that you have left, but you may start losing folks at 4:30 just because they probably allotted an hour for this. So I would suggest you jump into, get as quickly as you can to the sort of adoption part
Yeah.
part 5, I'm assuming that's like working with us, and then and let folks ask questions then about that, and then hopefully we can talk about next steps.
Great. Okay. So then there's a slide that I'm showing that it's a model. It's from University of Chicago. It lays out kind of the affective domain based on a lit review. I'm not going to go into it. I'll share this with you as we work together in the future to give you an understanding of it. And what we've done is we've been able to find psychological constructs that actually measure those things that the University of Chicago model and other models show are most important. And I'm going to skip through those mindsets. And we did a study that had the first measurement before they came into the foundation course, and then after the first 2 weeks, and then at the end of the semester 4 months later. And this is a study of 769 students at 6 colleges. And what the results of that study shows is that 7 of the 8 factors shift at a 0.001 level of significance, 0.001 level in 2 weeks after the foundation course, and that at the end of the semester, 6 of the 8 stay at the same level or get better, and that's also at a 0.001 level of significance. So what we're able to do is actually shift the affective and non-cognitive areas that science is showing are critical for student success. And we have evidence that shows that. And this study that was done was published in January. It's an instrument that was developed at the University of California and our program, and it's based on standardized instruments. So it measures 11 psychological constructs. It's a very rigorous type of a study. So let me go on to the adoption opportunity here. This picture of the United States shows, we have partner colleges that we work with, and then there's some colleges that are exploring statewide adoption with us, and which is the next level for us, is to help a state bring in our program and be effective at building the capacity, because we have a teach the teacher model where we teach faculty how to do this, and then they start to teach others how to do it. So we can move it to different levels of the college. As we mentioned before, there are 6 levels or 6 program variations of the ACE model for college-ready students and then underprepared students as well. And our adoption methodology will help you determine which ones of these you would want to do. Would you want to do more CTE? There's a whole process we'll be doing, which I'll explain in just a moment. So the way that our Teach the Teacher model works is that we have a master mentor model. So the FELI, which is the 5-day Experiential Learning Institute, is the first professional development training that's done. And you have a master mentor and participant. Then if a participant graduates from that and wants to be involved in teaching the foundation course, then they go into the foundation course practicum with a master mentor with a group of students. And you have about 6 practicants, teachers, with the master teacher, with about up to 29 students. And they learn how to do this work and teach it in the foundation course. Then they go out and they teach it for 2 semesters. And at that point, they become candidates to become master mentors of the foundation course practicum. And in addition, they can become a practicant within the 5-day Experiential Learning Institute. So that by the next summer, by the end of that summer, they could now become master teachers that can now train teachers at their college in the Experiential Learning Institute and the Foundation of Leadership course. So our model is to build independence with the partners we work with so that you have the capacity to grow it, both at your college and also within your state. I want to skip through these next slides because we're moving towards college-based adoption. It allows colleges to control the pace of learning and it's bottoms up with buy-in, but the colleges pay 100% of the cost. And the other issue, so that the state-based adoption, we're developing collaborative planning and shared resources, leveraging the training events and foundation assistance that Kresge Foundation will be providing, and we'll be developing state-based expertise with your master mentors there in Arkansas that can help teach other colleges within Arkansas and also in your region later if that becomes important to do this work. And we have a limited number of colleges that we're going to be able to do with the grant we have. And it's primarily one pace for all, which I think is actually better than what we've done in the past, which we've worked individually with colleges. And so let me lay out what that's going to look like, what we're proposing. And that is, in the first year, it's primarily planning to bring in the curriculum. It's identifying the faculty. It's identifying which student populations you feel would be best, would benefit best from this. And then we'd be putting the planning in place this first year. So the fall of 2014 and the spring of 2015, there would be 4 planning workshops. That'll be like a day and a half, 2 days each. So we do one in October, one in either November, December, one in February, one in March, something like that, where the 4 colleges would come together at one place, and we would do a 1.5 to 2 day workshop. And we would be going through how to plan for this and put everything in place. And there's different threads, as I mentioned. Which students are we going to focus on? How many cohorts do we want to have? What teachers need to be trained to fit that model? How's the curriculum going to be brought into our curriculum process? Does it map onto other curriculum that we already have, or is it independent curriculum that we have to take through the process? Who are the types of students and how do we recruit them? So it's just laying out methodologically or methodically all these different questions. Leading to the summer of 2015, where you would do all the professional developments. We do all these trainings and these events to bring all the faculty up to speed on how to implement and do this with students. Leading to the practicums, and then that fall of 2015, you would have your first cohorts that you would run the fall of 2015 and the spring of 2016. So then you'd have 2 implementations in a row, and then the next summer we would do the FELI practicum, where faculty that are ready to be teachers of teachers would then go through a practicum, and that summer is when you could start on your own, training your own faculty. So that's kind of the timing. Through those adoption workshops, we would also be looking at what is the institutional research data that we need to collect, where would we find that, and plan all those things out. And so that's primarily what we're looking at. With 2 adoption workshops the second year, looking at scaling, institutionalization, and how to grow it statewide.
And Diego, let me jump in here and just make it clear that the Kresge Foundation grant is paying basically for all of your services and all of the trainings and all of those things that you just described. But in your last slide there, the college-based approach that you were referring to, that's where these other colleges that you've worked with previously, they've actually paid for all of this, right? So Kresge is essentially subsidizing our college's involvement. So there's no expenses for our colleges to participate in this, other than faculty time and things of that nature that are part of what faculty do anyway. Is that right?
Yeah, and administrators doing planning and thinking things through. So it's in-kind contribution, but primarily Kresge is covering the expenses of implementing this. And the reason they're doing it is that they want to see state-level capacity being built. And then how do we do that at the state? Because once that capacity is there, the cost of implementing gets very, very low cost because you're using it within the state.
And we're also, real quickly before I let folks ask questions, we are looking to providing, if we can, as you all settle on the budget for the Kresge grant, some funding to the colleges to reward faculty for participating in this, or to cover other expenses that might come up. It won't be a lot of funding, but Diego, do you remember what we were looking at or have talked about?
I think we're looking at $10,000 over 2 years. So it'll be $5,000 a year.
Okay. So should we take? Yeah, I think we should take some questions. Let folks ask any questions, clarifying questions. We've only got a few minutes left.
Mike, this is Stephen Murray. In terms of the timeline for this project, what are we looking at as far as buying in and buying out?
Good question. Diego and his team are finishing the Kresge proposal this week. We would like to be able to mention the colleges that are interested in that proposal, but we don't have to. So I might say if you could tell us something by the end of the week, that would be fantastic. If you need more time, just let me know. How's that for an answer?
I think that's an answer.
And then the timing of it is that this summer we'll be setting up the schedule for the adoption workshops for the fall and kind of the things to be thinking about in terms of types of students and those things to lead into that. That's the timing of those that commit to wanting to do this. And Mike, you were saying that if people aren't able to say, yes, this is something they're intrigued by and want to look seriously at doing it by, I guess, Thursday or early Friday morning, since we have to turn in the proposal end of day, they could get back to you and we could build that into the next few weeks to determine that, or is that how you were looking at it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think for purposes of Kresge, we're not going to have to tell them the precise schools at this point. You're not going to have to tell them that, I don't think. And I feel comfortable saying that, we can have 2 or 3 schools that are interested in doing this. It's, by the time we would do that planning meeting, were you thinking of doing that this summer? I can't remember in your timeline.
No, the first adoption meeting will probably be in October, I would think. But we'd be starting to do the planning in August timeframe, I think, is where we would start to say these are the colleges that are going to do it, and this is kind of the timeline of where we're going to head forward. And we should have that in the summer, that timeline. Yeah, so
Diego, we'll see what response we get by the end of this week, and then if we have to reach out to more schools, we can do that, and I think we can have enough to participate come August. I feel confident, or whatever the timeline is.
Okay.
Diego.
Yes.
This is Debbie King, and I saw you at the ATD conference, and I was really fascinated by your work. I was especially impressed with the evidence that you just shared about the speed with which math students, or how quickly math students are able to remediate. Did I misunderstand? Did you say there were numerous math curriculum used with this, that really had almost no bearing? I know you mentioned 3 different kinds of math programs.
Okay, that's a very good question. Okay, so the particular math work that we've been doing is tied to a primary research social justice research project the students do in teams. So they develop research questions, they develop survey questions, and from there they go out and survey 150 people. They come back with data sets of 40 questions or so with 150 people, and they now have to crunch it. So it gives them now the impetus to learn the statistics, the pre-statistics. So the math curriculum we use for that is out of Myra Snell's work in the California Acceleration Project. They have a curriculum that's their guideline to colleges. Well, that curriculum is developed for ACE. So the way it's laid out sequentially over the weeks ties right into our social justice research class. So that's what we've been doing. But if a college wants to use Statway or they want to use these other methods, we're willing to adapt what we're doing to fit where they're heading. So we're saying we're agnostic, but if you're going to use the acceleration model that we are showing statistics around, where you want to do math and English combined, then you'll need to adopt our math approach, because it's based on this contextualized math around the social justice research that the students do.
And it sounds to me like it would complement the quantitative literacy effort that we're seeing in our state. Is that what you found to be the case, or?
Yes, it really tackles the quantitative literacy, and what it does is it contextualizes it. So the students, they start to want to learn this because they want to understand, why are teenagers getting pregnant? What's going wrong with our sex ed programs, and so they go in and they want to study this, and then they learn how to filter data, and they start to look at distributions of answers across different filters of people, and they start to look at scattered graphs, and they start to understand all this math stuff because they want to see what the data is telling them. So it really motivates them to learn it. And so yes, math literacy, quantitative literacy, it really ties to that.
And Diego, this is Mike. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're looking, if you work with developmental students, if that's the model you choose, you're going to want folks to have some type of accelerated models for developmental ed. But what those are, you're not overly concerned with that, or you're agnostic, I guess, is the term you used. Is that right? I mean, in other words, if they choose to work with developmental students, you're going to want them to have some type of accelerated developmental models that they're using within this overall effort. But which ones those are not as important to you. Is that a fair statement?
Right. That's a fair statement, especially on the English side. If you want, however, to do simultaneous math and English acceleration, it's hard to do that without having it contextualized so that things are integrated. And that's what we've been doing for a number of years now. So if you want to do both at the same time, then on the math side you might want to consider what we're doing. But we're open. We're open. And you may not want to be doing social justice primary research either. You may want to, I find project-based learning really contextualized stuff. So, but if you have other approaches that you're using, we're open to working with you and learning from each other.
Mike, this is Dennis Rittle. I have more of a foundational question as far as back to the sample itself. There was discussion that the colleges would determine who the group would be that would be exposed to this type of intervention. And my question comes down to fundamental, and that is, we right now determine student readiness based off either a compass or an ACT, some kind of academic mechanism in order to assess student competencies to see whether or not they're college ready. Here we're going to a fundamentally different approach. We're talking about the affective domain. That is, are they psychologically in the right place, thinking that they can be successful, their self-efficacy, those pieces, which is all fine. But are we going to be using an instrument like a hope instrument, which there's a number of them out there, to measure their level of hope to determine whether or not they should be in this, or how are we going to determine who is going to be exposed to this intervention? Because we could assume we can use an academic instrument and say, okay, these students who come in with these certain levels of competencies should be exposed to this training, but that doesn't measure hope. That's measuring some other competency. So I need a little more clarity there.
Yeah, and Diego, I know you got an answer to this, but let me just say, Dennis, that they've developed a tool to assess students and to measure their progress on these affective domains. So Diego, go ahead.
Yeah, so what we use for selection criteria are academic assessments. That's all we use. We developed the using standardized instruments like a hope scale too. That's one of the constructs we've been measuring. We use that to show that actually affective domain shifts are precursors to the academic performance. So we're using that for research. We're not using it for selection at this point. We're doing a lot of research. We have a data set of 40,000 students' MIS records, and we're doing what's called a structural equation model to start to find out what are the key components that's causing the academic success. And so
I'm very familiar with the structural equation models. I've done a lot of it myself. And
oh, good.
That piece, yes, I've done a lot. I've done a lot with quant and qual, both mixed methods. But the piece that I'm not really sure about is if we're using academic measures to place the students, and then we're trying to target affective domain areas. I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about the pre and the post elements. And if we're really trying to target, we're saying it's effective, that's weak, and that's what we want to. So we want to identify an intervention. I'm not sure why we're not measuring those on the front end.
Well, that's a good. We're looking for colleges that want to do the affective measurement up front as part of their academic measurements. We've had 2 colleges do it to test it, but we would love to have a college or a number of colleges that want to do the affective assessment up front with the academic assessment. That would be very powerful. That means all students have to do it. It takes about 15 minutes for a student to take this assessment. That measures 11 constructs.
I think if we were to participate, that's an area that I would want to go into, because I do suspect, I mean, if I was forming a hypothesis, I would say there's going to be definitely more of the variance that's going to happen from their change is going to be driven by that element, that aspect of hope, or the affective domain than the academic, because you're going to be looking at drive. So,
right, and what we're looking at, what we're finding is that they cluster. So if you look at the 11 constructs, we're finding some clusters of constructs or profiles are actually more vulnerable or less committed than others. And that's the research we're in the middle of. And it sounds like you're a great candidate to be working with us side by side on the research that we're in the middle of. We'd love that too.
So Diego, do you not have an assessment tool to measure the effective domain? I thought you did.
Yeah, I skipped through those slides. So if you go back to that slide, slide number 77 or 76, it's affective domain of emotions and feelings.
And then don't you use that assessment then, the same assessment, to measure their movement on those issues?
Yes, we use the measurements with the students in the program. We want to find colleges, and we were going to hope this part of our doctrine process is that you would put it in place to have every incoming student take this 15-minute assessment as well. That's what our hope was, but we're not going to demand that, even though we'd like to.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, we'd like to see that, but it's something we're still in the research side of this. But we do have a measurement instrument. It's the results I was showing you, the 7 of the 8 factors shifting at a 0.001 level. That's out of that instrument, which is based on 11 psychological constructs that have standardized measurement tools that have been peer-reviewed. It's the slides that I skipped over. But do you have that slide up with mindset, social skills, and perseverance, self-control on the screen,
yes.
Nicole?
Yes.
Okay, so you have mindsets, you have college identity. When you factor analysis, you find that self-efficacy and hope actually combine through factor analysis. And then you have mindfulness describing. We have 4 mindfulness constructs that we look at. And that's out of the Kentucky Inventory of Mindfulness, which is used in science research in medical schools on the prefrontal lobe. It's a very effective instrument. And then we do social skills, teamwork and leadership, interaction with others, and that studies those aspects of it. It takes 15 minutes, and it's online.
Mike?
Yes.
This is Marty, and I know that we here at ASUN would like to participate. We found faculty inquiry really helpful. So I think this sounds exciting.
Fantastic. We'll count you in then.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I hate to keep people past an hour.
Will we have access to these slides?
Yes. Yes, we'll make them available to you, Mike. Then you can send them out.
Yeah, and Diego, I'm going to send out your contact information. I mean, if they want to have a one-on-one conversation with you to answer some questions, you're certainly open to that, right?
Yes, and I'll give you my cell phone because I'd love to talk with anyone that wants to talk about this. And I'm available to do that. We're on this timeline, of trying to get this proposal out, so I can make the time.
So I'll send the slides and Diego's contact information, and folks can follow up directly with him. If you are interested in being a part of this, let me know this week sometime if you can. Before Thursday would be great. If you don't know by then, that's fine. Just tell me you need a little more time, and that's okay too. Like I said, we don't need to. I don't think Thursday is a drop-dead deadline for us. It's just that's when the proposals due. So if you need more time to figure it out, just let me know, and I think that'll be okay too. And again, Diego will be available for follow-up questions, and you can contact him directly. I'll send his contact information out. So Diego, do you have any other final words?
Well, I'm honored that you all are here in this webinar. I'm sorry it ran a little late, and we're pretty prompt. So don't see this as a way that we'll be working in the future. We run things pretty smoothly, and I'd love to work together with all of you. This is exciting work, and you're working with a very important population there in Arkansas. And we'd love to be a part of it with you and learn from you as much as you're going to be learning from us, I'm sure.
Any other final questions, comments from folks?
Mike, this is Dennis from Ozarka. We'll have a word back for you by Thursday for sure.
Great. Thank you, Dennis.
And we will, Mike.
Same here, Mike.
All right. Great, folks. Thanks for your time, and I look forward to hearing from everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all.